Hi friends, I'm Gio, and welcome to my channel. I write gay fiction because I like it. I'm calling this little story. Then he smiled. This is intolerable, Mom sneered. We have to take an Uber like common people. Mom and I shared an Uber from McCarran International to my parents' 20-acre Vegas estate, and I had to endure Mom. Of course, we spoke only Japanese, even though we're both fluent in English. I'm bilingual. I can speak and read Japanese almost as well as I can English. Only Japanese was spoken in my house. Mom's rules. Good thing both Dad and I are fluent. I have found a nice girl you can marry who can host parties to impress the right kind of people, Mom said. Mom, I'm gay, I said. I have told you many times we will not talk about that. You look like a filthy street urchin. You are supposed to be my son, and yet you embarrass me. You are a senior now, and must think about life after college. Do you expect to ever get a job with hair longer than your sister's? A pierced nose and pierced ears are not acceptable in the business world. Remove them. I dare not imagine what kind of woman would date you looking like that. You embarrass me and shame your heritage, Mom said. Her tone was crisp and frozen. I will arrange for a stylist to make you respectable, and you will wear a shirt with a high collar to cover up your tattoo. I still don't understand why you got that thing. It's hideous. Mom doesn't like my tattoo. My grandparents did. It's a samurai warrior. It's in color, and it covers my whole back. What you need is someone who can help you climb the corporate ladder, and to do so, you need someone with the right name, and whose family has the right connections. Her name is Marjorie Belmont, Mom said. Mom, your snobby side is showing, I said. Mom loves the lifestyle and flaunts it. Gucci this, Valentino that, a touch of Dior. Everything's better if it's designer Italian. Your father owns and has built his business across Nevada, and it has done well. Knowing both Japanese and English gives him an advantage. It will you also, Mom snapped. Mom, did Grandma Suki and Grandpa Haru plan your life too? I said. They preferred a simple, common life. I want more, Mom said. I'm not going to date this Marjorie, Mom. I'm gay, I said. If I stayed completely calm, it would drive Mom crazy. You will not talk about that, Mom said, mouth half closed as if she had something stuck in her teeth. I switched to English and spoke to the woman Uber driver. Did you know I'm gay? Whoopee, throw a parade. If you're expecting a discount, find another Uber, she said. She chuckled at some joke I didn't get. Anders-chan, you are embarrassing me, Mom said in Japanese, her voice sharp and bitter. Chan is only added to children's names. It's Mom's not-so-subtle insult telling me I'm acting like a child. I remained silent. This fraternity you belong to is teaching you nothing but bad manners and disrespect, Mom said in Japanese. I raised an eyebrow, tilted my head a little, and stared out the window. There was no way to win an argument against Mom, except not saying anything. Tell me what day you have available, and I will arrange for the two of you to meet, Mom said. I'm gay, Mom, I said, refusing to switch to Japanese. You will not talk about that. You embarrass me, Mom said, automatically switching to English. It didn't embarrass Grandma and Grandpa, I said. They don't have the same social expectations I have, Mom said, lifting her chin a little higher. Do your own parents embarrass you too? I said. The lady driving the Uber glanced back, frowning. You will do what is right for the family, Mom said, her lips pressed tight, her eyes narrowed. Anders-chan. I'm gay, Mom-chan. At least I respect my grandparents, I said. And disrespect your mother, she said, with a tone that always terrified me when I was younger. The car bumped, Sorry, Princess. Rough road, the Uber driver sneered. We sat the rest of the way in silence. After the Uber dropped us off, I set Mom's bags by the door of the estate. A servant hurried to pick them up while I took my bags to my car. You will come inside and speak with your father. He approves of this arrangement. I will arrange for Monday at 6 at Oreshi Teppanyaki. The Belmont family is a good match for ours, Mom said. I'm gay, Mom, and proud of it. It's time you and Dad respected me, I said, and drove off. Destination, the comfortable madness of the frat house. Tonight was the Frats Get to Know Your Neighbor party. When I arrived at the 3-story frat house, all the frat boys were in their orange t-shirts with the words Frat Boy written on the chest in big black letters. Twitch, a hyper-blonde guy, and a couple of the guys were arranging Christmas lights around the front door and the donation table. Jefferson, a dark-haired guy who always wore baseball caps, was hauling his gear to the backyard. He was the Frat Boys' DJ. Chaz, God's self-appointed gift to women, had found a girl to talk to. Again. A bunch of guys had returned from the grocery store and carried buns, chicken, burgers, propane, and a lot of fruits and vegetables inside the frat house. Howard, our big, mean boxer, and another couple of guys were wrestling with a keg in the back of a truck. I parked to the side of the frat house and climbed out with my bags. Anders, I wasn't sure you'd make it, Solomon, the frat prez, said, walking to my car. It was a long flight with some turbulence. I'm feeling this one. Give me a job where I don't have to think, I said. Choose. Sleep tonight and clean up tomorrow, or cook tonight and sleep tomorrow, Solomon said. Give me a barbecue, I said. I'm too tired to be around people. Done. Get your gear stowed. Get your orange shirt on. It's time to party, Solomon said. I'll be down as soon as I get a shower. I'm smelling me, I said. Peace at last, or as much peace as a frat house had. I lived on the 3rd floor in a room by myself. Last year, I had a roommate, but he graduated and moved to Hawaii. Lucky guy. Before I joined the party, before I showered, before I put my suitcases away, I had something important to do. I took an incense stick, lit it, and put it in the vertical holder in front of Buddha. My shrine took up a small section of the shelf above my desk. I knelt, clapped my hands together twice, and bowed my head. Grandma Suki had given me the hand-carved incense burner on my last birthday, and Grandpa Haru had given me the incense, a subtle plum blossom fragrance only found in Japan. It always reminded me of him. It was a simple shrine, with a picture of my parents and my older sister with her husband and baby on the right side, and a picture of my grandparents, my aunt, uncle, and my 2 cousins on the left. My parents and their servants lived only a few miles away, on the rich side of Vegas, in a secluded behemoth of a house. My sister lived in San Francisco, near her husband's family. They had a maid and a cook because my sister hated cleaning and cooking. My grandparents lived with my uncle and his family in Japan, Okinawa to be precise. They couldn't afford servants and did everything themselves. Maybe that's why I liked being around them. The small picture in front of the incense holder was of Haru, my sofu, my grandfather. He died almost 3 weeks ago. My mom, Tsubaki, and I traveled to Okinawa for the viewing and funeral, and stayed 2 weeks. I stayed with my uncle, Grandma Suki, and my cousins, while Mom stayed at some luxury spa because she didn't want to burden the family. The katana in the stand on my desk was the last thing Grandpa Haru had given me. I'm Anders Young. Dad's from Vegas, Mom's from Okinawa. They met when he was stationed there 25 years ago. Then they returned to Vegas, where they married, and had my sister 24 years ago, and me 23 years ago. I have black hair, which I often pulled into a tail, black eyes, double pierced ears, and a small silver stud in my left nostril. Mom disapproves. Grandma Suki introduced me to a man, Kato, on this last trip, and we dated a little on the pretext I was teaching him English. We both knew the relationship would only last until I left, but that didn't stop us from having fun. Dad was a mechanic, and a good one too. With Mom's head for money, he turned one mechanic shop into a string of 12 that covered Nevada. He tried to teach me how to work with cars, but my heart wasn't in it. He's a businessman now, CEO and owner of Young Mechanics. We keep your cars running young. My folks are living the millionaire dream. What's my dream? I've wanted to be a samurai my whole life. My grandparents got me for my 18th birthday the replica of the samurai warrior in full armor that is sitting on my desk next to my katana. To show me they accepted and loved me, they gave me a miniature pride flag. The left half of it was the traditional rainbow flag. The right half was the Japanese flag. Being a samurai is not possible in 21st century Vegas. However, since I speak both languages fluently, there are a lot of potential jobs for translators. I've helped Chaz with his blog and translated it into Japanese, and helped another friend translate a game into English that was only released in Japan. Before I left on my last trip, I helped another friend subtitle their YouTube post into Japanese. It wasn't big money, but it was enough to pay rent at the frat house. My uncle promised to send some work my way. I miss Grandpa Haru. We only got to see each other once a year, but we could stare at the ocean and talk. He told me about how the Okinawa now wasn't the Okinawa when he was a boy. He grew up with no electricity and no phone and little money, but had lots of friends. He made it sound like he was the richest person on earth. This prayer was for Grandpa Haru. I prayed that Buddha would watch out for him, and if Grandpa Haru got a second, maybe he would watch out for me. I finished the prayer, clapped twice, and headed to the shower. The hot water better wake me up. Maybe the guys had made some caffeine, because I sure needed it now. The Frats Get to Know Your Neighbor party was tonight, and my jet lag had jet lag. Okinawa is only 17 hours ahead of Vegas. Coming home was like traveling backwards in time. I dressed and took one last look at Grandpa's picture before taking the stairs to the main floor. A bunch of frat boys were in the kitchen slicing and dicing and forming burgers. Several more were outside setting up the grills, and somebody got the big screen ready for video games. I put a coffee pot on, filled a cup with ice, and made iced coffee. Southern Nevada was too hot for a regular cup, and I desperately needed the caffeine. The barbecues waited. The guys at the grills all chanted, "Frat Boys, Frat Boys, Frat Boys." Jefferson played a test song to make sure the speakers worked. Black high heels and a sexy black dress. He stopped the song, made a couple of adjustments to his CDJ turntables and mixers, and played it again. I didn't hear any difference, but Jefferson must have. Once again, Jefferson stopped the song, made some adjustments with his mixer, adjusted something for the speakers, and started the song again. I sipped my cold caffeine. "Anders," Solomon said, "we have a little problem. Twitch did a quick head count, and we need more food. While the guys get the barbecues going, head to the store. Call me and I'll tell you what we need." I gulped down my iced coffee and headed to the cars. Crap. Somebody had parked behind my car. There was no way I was getting out. "Solomon," I said into my phone, "we have another problem." A second later, Solomon said, "Chaz is running to get his car. He'll meet you out front." "You pried him away from some girl? How?" I asked. I told him it was frat business, and he'd better start helping or he's on cleanup duty. "Here's what we need," Solomon said. Chaz's car pulled up front, and some guys got out I didn't know. I'll ask Chaz about it later. Chaz had left the door open for me, so I ran, climbed in, and sat down. "Whoa, Eugene, wait up. I didn't think I'd make it," I yelled. "I'm not Eugene. What are you doing in my car?" some strange guy said from the driver's seat. It wasn't Chaz. It looked like Chaz's car, but this wasn't Chaz's car. Damn. Talk about a huge mistake. I hope this guy had a sense of humor. This man was cute and sexy in a naive, innocent way. Kind of muddy brown hair, blue eyes, and an expression that could be terror. His clothes were a little big and he was skinny. First impression, I'd scared the crap out of some freshman. From his point of view, a stranger had just invaded his car. No wonder he looked scared. Not Eugene. Eugene. It's Japanese for friend. Are you coming to the party? I said, trying to make nice. This was not a good omen. Soon as I parked the car, he said. Something about him seemed nervous, like he felt out of place. I sighed. First few hours back in the States, and I'm tired, irritable, depressed, fought with my mom, and now I jumped into a stranger's car. Not my best day. Maybe this guy would be willing to help me out because there was no sign of Chaz. I smiled to show that I'm a nice psycho. Somebody's double parked behind my car, and this is an emergency. Take me to the grocery store. We need more hot dogs and burgers. More people showed up than we thought, I said. And we need more beer. The guy looked away. At least he hadn't told me to leave. Come on, whoever you are. Be nice. Please be nice. I don't let strangers tell me what to do, he said, looking away from me. Fair enough. I'm Anders Young, a senior. I majored in English, minored in history. I like anything Japanese, and I live on the 3rd floor of the frat house. I'll make you a couple of burgers later and get you plates of French fries, and you can have a couple of beers if you want. Can we get going now? I said. Cut the French fries and beers. I don't need the carbs, and I'm the designated driver, he said, putting the car in drive. The guy started to say something, but Godzilla roared, my ringtone. Solomon called again. So this guy was a designated driver at a frat party? We need them, but they seldom show up. This guy was a fish out of the ocean, and the ocean was almost 300 miles away. This man was way out of his depth. Solomon told me more things to get, while this stranger took me to the nearest store. There was something about his shyness that made him seem vulnerable. We climbed out of the car. The man was shorter than me, and dressed in a black t-shirt of some band I'd never heard of, the Jumping Pyros. Then we both ran into the store. He got a cart, and we ran around the aisles, laughing, while we sped up and down the aisles. I piled ground beef and hot dogs and bacon and buns and cheese and a million tomatoes and jars of pickles in the cart. We found the propane and witched 2 tanks on the bottom rack. I hadn't had this much fun for months. The other guy looked at me. Then he smiled. Wow. He pushed his hair back, and we shared a glance. Wow. I hope he's gay. His eyes twinkled, and we shared a laugh. His face brightened, and so did my soul. My world seemed happier. My heart turned into a little puddle in my sandals. There was a genuine warmth about him, a gentleness, as if he cared, as if he really wanted to help somebody he had never met. Wow. His smile made him the most beautiful person I'd seen in a long time. We hucked the stuff into his trunk and headed back to the frat house. Half the frat waited for us, and the moment we stopped, they yelled Frat Boys and emptied his car. The frat owes you, whatever your name is, I said, and hurried to join the others. We were already behind. It was quicker to run around the frat house than push through the mob inside. Still, whoever this guy was, I hoped I saw him again. I'd do anything to see that smile. The frat had a huge lawn out back. Jefferson had set up his gear on one side, and a large group of people were dancing while we got the food ready. Somebody had wrapped Christmas lights around the railing of the long deck in back of the frat house. One side had a huge hot tub that could also be considered a small pool, while the other end had all the grills. Godzilla roared. My phone again. It was Mom, on vid chat. I can't talk right now, Mom. You will talk to me, and now you will meet Marge, Mom said, but I couldn't hear the rest of her sentence, but could guess. I'm gay, Mom. Discussion over. I have to go right now because I have other things that are more important than you interfering in my life, I said, and hung up. Mom will never learn. I passed a couple guys leaning against the railing. It's rush week next week, one guy said. Do you want to try for this frat? The other guy took a swig of his drink and said, they're kind of picky about who they accept. Picky, as in rich? Picky, as in you have to prove you're the right kind of person, the second guy said. I bet half the guys at this party are going to try for the frat. All we have to do is make the frat remember us. I ignored the 2 idiots. How could I have forgotten rush week, the second week of school's big event? Maybe because I had a death in the family. Good thing my teachers had given me work so I wouldn't fall behind. Good thing I was a freelance translator and could make my own hours. Chaz left the grill he was babysitting and handed me the metal spatula. "It's all yours. I see me someone fine, and she's given me the looky up, looky down." "Chaz, you're supposed to be delivering burgers from the kitchen so we can grill them," another frat boy yelled. "William." "I will, later," Chaz said, heading out to the dancers. "Not again," William, the guy at the barbecue next to me, said. Next week was rush week, and if the applicants can impress us, we'll vote them in. The number of openings change from year to year. It depends on how many people graduated last year and how many people moved out of the frat house. A lot of men would do anything to impress us. We only have 10 openings available this year. Chaz wasn't around. We needed more burgers and more fries, and there wasn't a sliced tomato in sight. I walked into the frat house with an empty tray, straight to the kitchen. They swapped trays, and I took the full one back to the grills. I set the tray down on the table beside my grill and offloaded some hamburgers. I passed the tray of burgers to William, and he passed it down the line. Another tray showed up, but we were all at the grills, and Chaz was dancing with 2 girls. I looked back. He stood there, shyly carrying a tray of hamburger patties. Then he smiled. His eyes were warm, his smile genuine, and it brightened his whole body. I had to get to know this man. He saw me giving him the twice over, and he blushed. A cute, timid soul. This guy had 2 frat friend stickers slapped above his heart, Twitch's way of telling the frat that this guy had donated double. Right beneath the stickers was a superhero badge, some guy in red tights and running fast. It was true. This guy was a designated driver. Somebody screamed on the dance floor. The music changed to something rap and loud. The guy's eyes darted sideways to look. His eyes widened, and his smile faded. Was he scared? Frat parties are not for the sober-hearted, or those with timid souls. This wasn't his scene. The poor guy wouldn't know what to do. Whoever had brought him had abandoned him to the chaos of the frat. Vulnerable, lost, alone, friendless, this man needed someone to protect him tonight. Admit it, I wanted him to smile at me again. Could I make him smile? I called him by the only name I knew, Eugen. "That's me," he said. "The guy who took me to the grocery store?" I asked. "Dane Richards, you kidnapped me, remember?" he said. "Best decision I've made all day," I said, making my tone a little flirty while taking the tray from him and loading my grill. Who says I can't multitask? Dane blessed me with a blush and a fragile smile that broke my heart. I had best be careful because I could fall in love with this man. This was one guy I wanted to know. "New here?" I asked. "Sort of. I'm a junior, but I've never been to a frat party before," he mumbled. "Did you ever think about joining one?" I asked. "Not really," he said. An odd, wistful look came across his face. I don't drink." "I already know that," I said, tapping the superhero pin. "What I really want to know is, what is a cute guy like you doing in the mixed-up chaos of a frat house?" Dane gave a little chuckle before saying, "I'm helping out, I guess." Then he smiled, a perfect, gentle thing that was like the dawn breaking over the horizon. My heart stopped. "I don't think I said thanks for taking me to the store, but I don't have time to do it properly now. You up for swapping numbers later?" I said. That got another brief smile and a nod. "Cook now, flirt later, lover boy," William yelled and shoved an empty tray back at Dane. "Fill her up, frat friend." "Hurry back, I'll get you a couple burgers ready," I said, and turned back to the grill. Dane took off for the kitchen and another tray. I stared at his cute little butt. Damn, what would it be like to kiss him? "Somebody besides me is horny," Chaz said, returning to the barbecues. He grabbed a plate of burgers and fries and went back to the dance floor. Lawn. "Chaz, Get back here and do your job, William said. Not when there's lust in the air. Don't wait up, Chaz said. I ignored them and stared at the door leading into the frat house. Dane would return any minute. Chaz was right. Lust was in the air. I took a sip of my iced coffee, hoping to hide my smile. The smell of overdone burgers became thick about me. Anders, get your mind off that guy. Your burgers are burning, lover boy, William yelled. I swore and began turning hamburger patties. I'm almost out. Where's Dane with the burgers? William said. I glanced back. Dane hurried past a couple of guys. He glanced at them, then joined me. Dinner served, he said. Then he smiled at me. His smile turned him into the most beautiful man I'd ever seen. The warmth, the way he cared, his vulnerability. It was completely opposite from the coldness of my mom. Dane had heart, like Grandma Suki, like Grandpa Haru. When I was 12, on the last day of our trip to Okinawa, Grandpa Haru had performed a special tea ceremony in my honor. His white hair was combed back, and he wore a gray kimono. Thank you, Grandpa Haru-sama. I enjoyed the tea, I said, trying to remember the correct words. My Japanese wasn't so good back then, and I was nervous I would say something wrong. I wore my American clothes, jeans and a white t-shirt and a gray hoodie. You are very welcome, my most favorite grandson, and her son, Grandpa Haru said, his eyes slightly twinkling. We were on the deck overlooking his wonderland, a formal garden he had created in the Japanese style, with a small pond and waterfall. I didn't know the name of the white and orange fish that swam in the pond, but Grandma Suki let me feed them every day. Grandpa Haru-sama, I am your only grandson, I corrected, as only a 12-year-old trying to act like an adult could. I made the mistake of switching to English. My mother pounced immediately. Anders-chan, you have caused offense, and your inability to speak Japanese embarrasses me. You will refer to my father as Sofu, and never use the American word grandpa, Mom said. A slight bitter frown marred her perfect eyebrows. She took a sip from a green teacup with a turquoise interior, then smoothed a wrinkle from her designer Italian silk blouse, the color of champagne. Had I spoken in English? Had I offended Grandpa Haru and Grandma Suki? My cheeks warmed and the words almost stuck in my chest. I am sorry. I did not mean to. I am sorry. I did not cause to mean offense, I mumbled in my broken Japanese and lowered my head. My grandparents glanced at each other, then Grandpa gave a soft chuckle and leaned over and ruffled my hair. He spoke in perfect English. Grandpa Haru, I like the sound of that, Anders-san. It makes me sound cultured and intelligent, don't you think, Grandma Suki? He gave me a little nod. His teacup was a bright yellow teacup with a bright orange glaze inside. Mom stiffened. Grandpa Haru, if you ever leave Japan, you can be a world traveler like our grandson, Grandma Suki teased, also in perfect English, and gave me a small, delicate smile. Only Grandma could smile like that. She wore a white kimono with pink flowers on it and had a white teacup with the tracing of a green dragon around it. What an honor! I am related to 2 international world travelers. Anders-san, you must promise to send me lots of teacups from all over the world. Hi, Grandma Suki-sama, I said, mixing my broken, stuttering Japanese with a suddenly nervous English. Grandpa Haru-sama? Grandma Suki-sama? They sound wrong, and it embarrasses me, and you will refer to my son as Anders-chan and speak only in Japanese, Mom said, in Japanese, setting her teacup down on the small tea plate with a glassy thunk. Don't mind your mother, Anders-san. Even as a girl, Tsubaki-chan always had to have matching teacups for her tea ceremony, Grandma Suki said, in English. I checked my teacup and everybody's teacup. Each teacup was different and beautiful. The one I held had a white glaze with a red interior and was decorated with a red geometric pattern. Mom suddenly straightened and lifted her nose a little. That is why your tea service is ugly. She grabbed her Louis Vuitton purse and walked out while Grandpa Haru was wiping a teacup with a cloth. I don't think the ceremony was over. It took me a long time to understand what my Grandma Suki meant. She sent me a Japanese tea set for my 16th birthday. 4 small cups and 4 small plates, each a different color, and each had a different pattern, with a beautiful little teapot that had a different design from all the rest. They all fit together on a tray decorated with cherry blossoms, each blossom a different color of the rainbow. It took me 2 years to understand the symbolism. My grandparents had known I was gay years before I told them, and this was their way of telling me that it was okay to be myself, because that's what makes me as beautiful as their tea set. My grandparents weren't rich, but Grandpa Haru made wonderful things grow in his garden, and I could always tell Grandma Suki anything. Mom and Dad were rich, but Dad was too busy with his business to stay home, and Mom was too busy living the wealthy life to listen. I smiled, but it was a sad smile, and my eyes teared. Dane was just as kind as Grandpa Haru and Grandma Suki. When we had time, maybe Dane and I could talk. Maybe I could get him to smile at me again. This is just like any other frat. We show them how cool we are, flash a little money, drop a few names, and we're in, Sil. Some guy in a $500 tailored gray silk shirt said. Somebody dripped money. You know how famous my dad is, Edward? He went to this frat when he was in college, and once they learn that I'm his son, it's an automatic in, Sil said. He wore a designer white polo with a wannabe letterman's jacket. This guy dripped fake. I knew their type. Their teacups all had to be the same, just like Mom's. Where's the meat? I'm out, one of the guys at the grill said. Dane went back for more, William said. Dane exited the frat house, bringing another tray of burgers, but he stopped behind the snobs. I jogged over to Dane. You know them? Old drama. My ex and the man he cheated with, Dane said. Edward abandoned me a month ago, leaving me with an expensive apartment, and he never left any money for his bills. You wouldn't know anyone who needs a roommate, would you? Ouch, I said, taking the tray from him. If he comes by my grill, I'll give him a burnt burger. William shoved another tray at Dane. Hustle your shoes, we've got a rush on burgers. On it, Dane said, and ran back inside. Godzilla roared. Again. My dad this time. Vid chat. Your mother says you were rude and will not do as she wishes, Dad said. Did Mom also tell you who she wanted me to date? I said. The Belmont family are a nice, respectable family, Dad said. I'm sure they are, but tell Mom I'm gay and I want to live my own life, I said. He is deliberately embarrassing me, Mom whined in the background. I have to go, I said, and hung up. As we divided the meats among the grills, I took a sip of iced coffee. I guess we all had problems. I put a couple of buns on the grill to crisp just for Dane. He didn't have to help us, but I'm glad he did. 2 minutes later, Dane ran back with 2 trays. The first one filled with a couple of steaks, more patties, and some chicken. The second one had sliced tomatoes, onions, cheese, and more buns. I helped him divide up the meats for the different grills and set the vegetables and cheese on the condiment table. The 2 snobs were still at the condiment table. They hadn't noticed our new frat friend. Hey, Dane, any more? William yelled. The guy in the tailored gray silk looked over. Give me the trays and I'll go get some, Dane said. Dane, Edward said, picking up his plate and his red cup and walking towards the barbecues. He sort of smirked at the guy in the white polo before turning his attention back to Dane. What are you doing here? You're not a frat boy. You don't belong here. Go home. Was I imagining it? Dane took a tiny step back, and his eyes widened. Was he afraid of this show-off? Sorry, Edward. Can't chat. I've got to get more burgers, Dane said, quickly dropped off the tray and disappeared into the frat house. What did you ever see in that skinny twerp? He doesn't have any money, the man in the expensive white polo and the fake letterman's jacket asked. Cheap bed and breakfast, if you know what I mean. Get this, you know how rich I am? I left Dane holding all the bills. What's he going to do about it? Nothing. Free money for me, Edward said. Right now, we need to throw a little money around and impress the frat president. I heard his name is Solomon. The guys at the barbecues are just grunts who don't matter. Yep, these 2 guys were just like Mom. Their teacups had to match. How did Dane get stuck with a narcissist like Edward? Dane stayed near us, delivering more trays, taking the old ones back to the kitchen, doing whatever we needed. In a way, becoming one of us. I kept Dane with me, both to protect him and because I wanted to get to know him. Shy, innocent, vulnerable, kind. And when he smiled, Dane outshined anybody at the party. Solomon and his girlfriend walked up to us about 9. Most of the burgers had run out, and a lot of the cheese and vegetables. "Good job, Frat Boys," Solomon said, an arm tight around his girl. "Close everything down and enjoy the party." "You hear that? Solomon says we're done," William yelled. "Frat Boys," the guys at the barbecue cheered. Solomon took a sip from a red cup and stared at Dane. "A frat friend superhero? You, my friend, are pretty rare. You better tell me that my frat boys treated you right. Have you found the fridge yet?" "That's Dane, Solomon, and he's been as busy as the rest of us," I said. "Except Chaz," somebody muttered. "Dane stepped up when Chaz stepped down," William said. Dane shrugged. The sudden attention must have embarrassed him. The guy was too cute when he blushed. "With as loaded as that beast is, it's a shame we only had 2 superheroes. Time to treat them right. Show Dane the fridge. He's got the run of it, and give him the tour. Tonight, Dane, you're a frat boy. You've earned it. Spread the word, Frat Boys. Dane the Great is in our house," Solomon yelled. All the frat boys around Dane shouted, "Dane the Great, Dane the Great, Dane the Great." His blush earlier was nothing compared to the candy apple red on his cheeks now. Then he smiled. My whole world brightened up. I took his hand and led the way into the frat house, taking a couple of the trays with us. We went to the kitchen, with its army of coffee pots and microwaves, but currently it was a nuclear disaster zone. We had used every dish, glass, tray, pot, knife, fork, spoon, spatula, and pan in the frat house. It would take decades to clean this place up. Good thing I'm not on the cleanup crew. "Check out the fridge, Dane," I said. "Whatever you need, it's yours, frat friend." "Do you have a blender?" Dane asked, opening the fridge. "Some clean glasses would be nice, too." "I'd feel sorry for Chaz," I said, chuckling, "but I don't." "Why?" Dane asked. "Half the frat cooked and got ready for tonight. The other half gets to clean up tomorrow morning," I said, getting the blender out. "You guys got the easy job," Dane said, pulling several fruits and juices from the fridge. "So far, all I know is that you're a senior majoring in English and you're Japanese and you're a frat boy. Tell me something about yourself." I cleared off some counter space for the blender. My 30-second life story. My dad grew up here in Vegas and was stationed in Okinawa something like 25 years ago. He met my mom, she's Japanese, and when Dad's tour was over, they married and came back to Vegas. They had me 23 years ago. Something special happened when I was 10. We went over to Japan, and Grandpa Haru and Grandma Suki took us to this samurai castle, where everybody was dressed up like samurais and nobles and geishas. They had a demo of 2 guys dressed like samurais sword fighting. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I fell in love with anything samurai. Can I show you something without you thinking it weird? "Sure," Dane said. I turned my back to him and pulled my orange frat boy shirt over my head. My grandparents thought my tattoo was cool. Mom did not. What would Dane think? Across my entire back was the full-bodied picture of a samurai in his fighting stance. It was so big that the sword went an inch above my shirt collar. "Wow," Dane said. "It's in color. How much did that cost you?" 15 to 20 Saturday afternoons. That was what I did right after high school, and was the main reason I didn't start college until I was 19, I said. "May I?" Dane stepped close to me, and with a touch that was barely more than a tickle, he traced the lines of the tattoo. His finger was warm and gentle, and I shivered. Dane used both hands and massaged my back from shoulder to trap to waistline. "You're really tense," he said, kneading each muscle. I held the counter and surrendered, the way Dane's warm hands pried the tension out of my neck, eased the strain out of my shoulders, teased the tightness from my lower back. Let's just say his smile wasn't the only thing I fell in love with. You could do this to me all night, every night, as much as you want. I'm yours, I said. That's where you hold your tension, Dane whispered, his strong thumb slowly kneading the soreness from my lower back. Your tattoo is beautiful, especially up close. I've never massaged a work of art before. You're really turning me on, I said. Can I kiss you, frat friend? A small, flirty smile escaped from Dane. Take me dancing first. Dane finished the drinks and handed me one. Whatever he put in it was worth the trouble. Cute, helpful, great massage, fun to talk to, and a smoothie master. I had to get to know this guy. Godzilla roared. Mom. Vid chat. I'm gay, Mom. Accept it. And no, I will not go on this date, I said, staring at her. You are being difficult, she said in Japanese. I'm gay, Mom, I said, and hung up. Family drama, Dane asked, and opened an app on his phone. Long story, I said. Doesn't your mom speak English? I couldn't open up the translator app fast enough to understand anything, Dane said. You didn't miss anything, I said. We could have been the only couple on the lawn dancing, but when Dane smiled at me, a warmth radiated out from my chest. I was the luckiest guy in Vegas. I held him, and he me. A delicate smile illuminated his face, and my heart. To make conversation, I asked, Why don't you drink? My alcoholic mom cured me from even starting, he said, looking down. What do you mean? I asked. For a second, I didn't think Dane would say anything. When he did, it was a low voice as if we were sharing secrets. Maybe it was, for him. Mom's a mean drunk, he confessed. For a second, pain flashed across his eyes, and tears beaded in them. The soft smile vanished. Dane's face darkened, and he avoided my eyes. I held him, tight, because I guessed his pain. No matter what Dane did, when his mom was drunk, she would tear him apart. Dane was helping because he needed someone to notice him, to appreciate him, to nurture his tenderness, to let him know that somebody cared, maybe even loved him. Dane didn't have a Grandpa Haru and a Grandma Suki. Is she abusive? You ever tell her? I asked. I tried a couple of times, but she yelled that I was too immature to understand her problems. She doesn't get violent or anything. She just yells and gets mean, Dane said. I'm afraid if I drink, I'll act like her. Dane's smile had disappeared. I didn't mean to, but I had dredged painful memories. I must get that smile back. Dane, you are amazing. Out of a couple hundred people at this party, you were the only one who helped us. You didn't even complain when I hijacked you and your car. What's better, you gave me a great massage. I know I should have waited. I know I should have asked. But Dane was hurting. I needed to see him smile again. We were close. We ignored the music. The moment was perfect. I kissed him. Dane pulled back a little. Right before, he kissed me. His mouth was sensitive, his touch cautious. He held me, almost desperate for someone to love him. He still hadn't smiled. Sorry, Dane whispered, as I snuggled him to my shoulder. I'm not usually like this. Parties like this, I guess I'm not used to them. I'm not crazy or wild or anything. Not like you guys. I don't usually kiss a guy I've barely met, and I didn't want to come, but... You are the sexiest guy here, I whispered, and I meant it. Dane still didn't smile. Somehow I had to make him smile again. I had another way that might work. I pulled him close and held up my phone. Smile. This is for my Grandma Suki. Dane smiled. I kissed him and took the picture. Dane kept smiling, and I sent the picture to Grandma Suki with the caption, "The man I want to make my boyfriend." Dane looked at my phone, and he giggled when he read the caption. I also sent the picture to both Mom and Dad and my sister. We were dancing when Godzilla roared. Grandma Suki. Her text? That smile is worth keeping. Godzilla roared. My sister. She texted an alternating string of flame emojis and heart emojis. Godzilla roared again. Mom. It wasn't a text, but a vid chat. I answered the phone, holding it to show both me and Dane. Hi, Mom. This is Dane. Dane pulled out his phone and flipped through the apps and activated one. What is the meaning of this? Are you deliberately trying to embarrass me? Mom said in Japanese. Dane tapped a couple of buttons on his phone. I guess it had translated it. What means giving this hand to my embarrassed person? Dane read. Did my phone translate that right? Is your mom giving you permission to marry me? I don't know whose face was more shocked, Dane's with his beautiful, flustered smile, or Mom's open mouth and wide eyes, or mine. Thank you, Mrs. Young. I'm honored you trust me, though we've never met. I mean, Anders and I live in Vegas, and we could get married tonight, but, Anders, I'm not ready. Maybe we could date a while first. Get to know each other, Dane said. I'd enjoy that, Dane. How about Monday night at Oreshi Teppanyaki, I said, holding Dane as close as I could. At least that shut Mom up. Then she quickly said, Baka. Dane looked at his phone and then kissed me. Your mom is right. This night has made us crazy idiots, but in a good way. Don't worry, Mrs. Young. I'll take good care of Anders for as long as we're together. Mom rolled her eyes and hung up. I had to laugh, and I quickly kissed Dane. That's not quite what she said. But would you do me the honor of giving me your phone number? Dane pulled out his phone, and then he smiled. Once again, my heart melted. The night air had a scent besides old barbecues and beer. It had the subtle smell of the incense I had lit at my small shrine, the Japanese plum blossom incense Grandpa Haru had given me. Thank you for joining me, my friends. This is the second Frat Boy story, and it is a companion story to Designated Driver. The events of this story take place a little before the end of Designated Driver. Remember, everybody, celebrate your uniqueness, because that's what makes you beautiful. Peace.